I thought I was going there for greener pastures. And then I realized that greener pastures is at home. The concept of overseas as a green pasture is something that sometimes we can't get over. That look, sometimes
it's been sold.
Sometimes go home. Like, you're better off
At home.
I think for me now, the new mantra is to go big, go home.
There's so many different things about Botswana that one can integrate into a narrative that can be commercialized. And in your opinion, how do you think we can go about that?
Yeah, so this is an entrepreneurial opportunity. I come back with a different mindset. There's a lot we can monetize. We need to engage with the world, but not to leave Botswana. And so I tend to believe that dual mobility is the best way to go about this.
Let's go back into education. You mentioned it much earlier.
I don't think that there's good or bad talent. I think there's
Exactly.
good or bad support around the
Yes.
talent.
100%.
Your child must have something they practice. Even if they might change their mind, like I changed my mind about music. There are transferable skills you can convert. But what is that one thing from 15 going up or before 15 that your child is consistently practicing?
Welcome to The Remarkable. Today, we have Yandile Nuku. I'm going to introduce you first, even before I introduce myself. My name is Matlogonolo Letsopampwanang. Yandile Nuku is a youth activist. She's an entrepreneur. She's a scholar. I say she's a scholar for life. She's somebody who's very wise beyond her years. She's somebody who MCs on international stages around the world. You know, I've seen you on some pretty serious stages. I call her somebody who's an erudite, somebody who's very eloquent. She is a daughter, she's a granddaughter, and hopefully one day she'll be a mother if she wants to be. No imposition. And she's one of my favorite human beings, and she's also been part of the Tkay coach and mentoring program, where she was actually the facilitator in those sessions as well, which was our privilege. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you for having me, Matty.
It's so good to see you. I haven't seen you in how long?
In years.
Yeah, how many years?
Maybe 2 or 3.
Yeah, amazing.
And we were both in Gabs.
Yes, yes,
Time
yes,
flies.
yes.
Time flies.
You have recently been living in Scotland. Can we start off with that? Yeah.
Well, I was there to do my MSc in entrepreneurship and innovation at University of Edinburgh. So I managed to be one of the few Africans who secured the MasterCard Foundation scholarship.
Nice.
So I think by 2030, MasterCard Foundation wants mission-driven talent in Africa who are not just academically driven, but who also have a track record of making an impact in their home countries or Africa. And so by God's grace, I managed to get in. So I spent the last 12 months in Edinburgh. Yeah.
How was it? I love Edinburgh. It's a quaint little town.
It's posh.
Yeah.
It's a posh place.
Quaint little town. I like it. But I mean, would you live there?
Yes and no. I think it'll become my second or third home. There are a couple of places that I love in Africa besides Botswana. Of course, Botswana is the first place. But I love Rwanda, Kigali.
Yeah, of course.
I also love Cape Town, South Africa. Windhoek, Namibia as well.
Yes.
And then maybe
You like
maybe my
clean
fourth-
places.
Yeah.
All the places you've mentioned are extremely clean.
Yeah.
Windhoek is extremely clean. Kigali is extremely clean. Cape Town is extremely clean. Well,
I've
certain
got a
parts of
certain
Cape Town.
taste. We've got a certain taste. So Edinburgh is right there. Every day feels like you can either be a tourist.
Yeah.
So, or you can be a student, you can be an entrepreneur, but there's room for adventure every single day. It's so calming and beautiful, peaceful. A lot of green spaces. In fact, I think that's one thing that I think we probably need to consider in Botswana. Even if you're having a bad day, just a walk through a place called the Meadows in Edinburgh. It's a beautiful place. And the possibilities there as well. So many brilliant minds in one place. There's a lot of Asian community there. So in the UK, it just depends on which city you're in. Like if you're in Manchester, there's a larger black community there. But in Edinburgh, from what I observed, from my point of view, there was a huge Asian community there. African communities is in a minority, actually. But yeah, I loved it. The Scottish are open-minded. Open to ideas, open to young people who are brilliant. I think I loved that. Not a lot of protocol. Like you don't need to go through a PA and so many, layers just to access important decision makers that could give you an opportunity to display your brilliance. So I think that's what I loved about Scotland. And I really love the sense of history and storytelling. Because in Edinburgh, it's a really cool place where, I forget her name, but the author of the Harry Potter series, she wrote some of her Harry Potter books in Edinburgh. And a couple of other stories, and I think James Bond as well. There's a scene in that movie where they shot in Scotland as well. It is so interesting how they've intertwined that experience with tourism. So, there's a place that I traveled to about a few hours away from Edinburgh. It's called Isle of Skye. And as you travel through the road, they tell you stories. You pause along the journey and they say, oh, that's where James Bond shot. That's the house that he was in. That's where Harry Potter was shot. And, from there, I really learned how culture and history can be commercialized sustainably into tourism. So those are some of the differences between home and what I've seen at Edinburgh. I must say, I went there thinking I was going to be trained somehow or shown what it means to be global talent or to be validated. But I realized that I left Botswana already validated. And that's something that I didn't expect. I thought I was going there for greener pastures. And then I realized that greener pastures is at home, but we need to find a balance in how, as global talent in Botswana, we engage with the world. We are land-linked, but there's also a landlocked mindset where Botswana is relatively peaceful and comfortable, and therefore we don't have a desire to explore external opportunities. Let me pause here. I hear that I can also interview myself sometimes, so let me pause here.
No. Let me tell you. Let me tell you. As I've been podcasting more, I'm learning to listen more because I invited you to be here as a guest. I've been given that feedback by previous guests, who some of them were quite miffed at the fact that they did not feel listened enough to. And so it's only my honor and my privilege to have you on this podcast. Let me go back to what you were saying. So to what extent do you think it's possible? And I know the art of the possible with you is limitless. I don't think it's impossible to do exactly what you've been describing. I mean, Botswana is, when you go to Kasane, Richard Burton, Gochobe, Game Lodge, proposed to Elizabeth Taylor for the second time. This is home this is home to Mpule Kwalahobe, who was Miss Universe. Movies have been shot here. Books have been written in this country. There's so much about Botswana. The whole story of how the first Khama met with his wife, and that's been turned into a movie. There's so many different things about Botswana that one can integrate into a narrative that can be commercialized. And in your opinion, how do you think we can go about that? Because I'm in the business of practical thinking as well.
Yeah, so this is an entrepreneurial opportunity. I come back with a different mindset. There's a lot we can monetize, like the Makadikari Epic, the salt pens as well. So I think it's just a group of whether you're in the tourism sector or the transport sector, because if you're, for example, going to monetize the journey from Gaborone to F-Town, A1, literally that's what happens. You'd pay pounds, hundreds of pounds to go on a 2-day journey. And the journey doesn't start when you arrive in Francistown. The journey starts from Gaborone, and there's a guide who talks about the history of Palape, and then you keep it moving. Along the way, you play music. You can then say, hey, Remose Rowe, this is where the great ATI
Is
from, and then you play ATI's music along the journey. So you also commercialize the content around the road. That's something that any entrepreneur can take up. I mean, it doesn't need any legislator to come into place. And so I think it's just you and your business acumen. Can you raise the capital for that? Can you get a good team and coordinate and get things going? Can you also market that? Can you also market that? You can reach out to different organizations, not to name drop because this is not sponsored, but that can facilitate that journey. And I think we've had 2 gentlemen who came to Botswana, I forget their names, but they were literally spotlighting Botswana and all the destinations you can go to. So you can attract more people like that, more young people in the diaspora who want to just travel for leisure, but also to learn. One of the other things that I learned in the UK is there's this thing called educational tourism. So you'd go for an MSc, and within a week, 2 weeks, or a month, depending on how that course is structured, you get to go to a different country and experience that country. Whether you want to talk about Botswana's political management, that how good we've been over the past 50 years, whether you want to talk about conservation, etc. So that's still tourism. And so really it's up to anyone who's listening who wants to take up the idea. So it doesn't take quite a lot. So yeah.
No, absolutely. What I liked about what you said earlier is that you left almost seeking some form of validation or seeking some education out there.
Yeah.
And I always marvel at the fact that I actually do think, we as Africans, there's a lot of value in us, or we as people sometimes, to be universal. And when I met you, the first time I met you, and this was years ago, I think I've known you for almost 10 years. When was TGM? I mean, that was a long time ago.
2016, I think.
2016, yeah, and it's 2020, almost 9 years. When I met you,
that's a long time ago.
Yeah, when I met you, I felt you had a certain old, quiet wisdom about you. So I've always seen you in that light, just so you know. And I'm not saying that lightly. I compliment those people I compliment, but I mean, people know I can be the opposite as well. But I think it's important to put that out there. But going back to you, I mean, when you find yourself now back home, are you now back home?
I'm in between.
You're in
so
between.
I think, and that's always a conversation. If it was some of my friends, there's, do I go back home or do I stay abroad? And there's always the saying of go big or go home. I think for me now, the new mantra is to go big, go home. Because I've realized
Like
that
to go big is to go
home. Yeah. Because I've realized that. So a couple of things you have to battle with I had to battle with when I got abroad was shrinking. When I left the country, I had probably reached the top of any industry that I was operating in, whether from broadcasting, corporate facilitation, or social entrepreneurship, or leadership in the country as well, from a public sector point of view. So my self-identity and confidence was already very strong. But when I got there, it's like nobody cares. But also life there is kind of simple. It's a good and a bad thing in the sense that, for example, when you get there, UK experience. But it doesn't matter what you've worked for how long or what you've done in Africa. If your CV doesn't have UK experience, be prepared to start
at the very beginning.
At the beginning. And worse if you've only had if I only had Botswana experience. Lucky for me, I've got African experience as well in terms of some of the work that I've done beyond Botswana. So there's that thing where you're battling with the concept of who am I in a global context and how can I access opportunities? And it's not just about academic intelligence, because when you're home, it's really just about getting the good grades, and also I think your social capital matters as well, networking. But there you start to have to think about visas as well. So you could be brilliant, but you don't have the right visa. How do you access that particular system? When you get there as well, there's this thing where people start looking for cleaning jobs or and all of that, whilst you're transitioning and trying to get the big opportunity. But some people get stuck in that trap. So it's not that when you're overseas, you're actually living the best life. You can degrade when you get overseas. But the concept of overseas as a green pasture is something that sometimes we can't get over. That look, sometimes
It's been sold.
Sometimes go home. Like you're better off
At home.
And if you looked at the peers that you graduated with that stayed at home, you might realize that in 5-10 years, married, got a farm. When are you still there? Because cost of living is so high. Even if the salaries in comparison to African salaries are high, tax is also high relative to tax in Botswana, income tax in Botswana. So there are those things that I battle with. I'm set. I'm going global. But the reality is, okay, I need to deal with the true information on the ground and make prudent decisions. That being said,
the reality vis-a-vis the perception.
The perception. My perception. I'm not even talking about public perception. Hoping that someone can relate to it.
Yeah.
But where I am now,
that's a good point.
I still understand Botswana's dynamic, that we are too small a country. We need to engage with the world, but not to leave Botswana. And so I tend to believe that dual mobility is the best way to go about this. So I should be able to add value to the UK economy and add value to the Botswana economy.
Listen, I live there.
Yeah.
I live there. Like, I oscillate between different countries. I literally, and part of the reason why I'm able to survive, by the way, because like you spoke about Gaborone, you spoke about Botswana earlier, and how you can easily get comfortable. There's a friend of mine who says it's like a province, and I always, and I won't say who, but what's like, I'm a Botswana province, Gaborone, and I'm always like, I get you, but there's something that you cannot reproduce. There is something that does not feel like this place that we call home. And I know, people that are watching that don't live in Botswana, don't live in Gaborone, they come here. I mean, it depends, to each his own. There's every, thing that is positive and negative about any environment, as is true about people as well. But I think to your point, though, I find that duality, that ability, so I come in, I stay home, but there are times where I have to get out. There are times where I have to see other worlds. There are times where I have to talk to other people. And what I'm finding, though, for myself, and I don't like, a friend of mine always says, this whole thing of the West or the Middle East, middle to what? You know what I mean? Like the West of what? But I do think that what the outside world, particularly Europe, the United States, those areas, what they've done is really sell the narrative that theirs is cream. You know what I mean? But when you get there, the reality is sometimes on the ground. For some people do exceptionally well. Look at our good friend Naomi, who's in Italy. I mean, she's an investment banker. She's huge, but not everybody has a Naomi type job, And I think I understand what you're saying by saying you want to do both.
Yeah. I think I was speaking from the reality of any young Motswana who wants to leave, or young African, right? I'm sure even Naomi, I know she's a good person that I follow quite a lot, one of the people that I look up to as well. But even she went to University of Oxford. So the social capital, even when you leave that university, will translate you to those types of opportunities. Not saying the university I went to is not good or that I don't have the same access. I've probably had similar good opportunities whilst I was in the UK. But is that the average story or the average possibility for every young person who wants to leave and go there? And I think not. Because how many of us will go to these top universities? Some of us don't even go to the best universities in the UK. You'll get there and, you still have to work your way up to make your name and access the right social capital. So I think that reality is also there. But, you just reminded me of an important realization as well. I think in 2023, I went to London. I was accompanying the youth minister. I was still on the Botswana National Youth Council board, and we were going for a Commonwealth meeting. I remember getting to the UK and I felt a sense of, so one of the things that I do is I pay attention to my energy and spaces and places. It kind of tells me whether I should stay there or there's something for me to pursue. So I got to the UK, London, central area, and so many buildings, so many small spaces. The room is so small. Like, I felt my mental health was not steady. And at the time, this was fast forward, I went to Edinburgh in 2024. I left there feeling like there's something about Botswana. Like the moment I arrived back at home, the peace, the vastness. Before I left, our CBD, like, it doesn't have many buildings compared to major cities in the world. I felt like that was a measure of lack of progress, or that we still need to build more in our economy. We still need to improve our infrastructure, etc., etc. Mehela, ever since I've been traveling more and I left the country, I feel like our nothingness is okay. And I feel like that is our competitive advantage. We don't need to change. And before I left, why? Because for Forbes. I don't understand why someone will travel from Europe to go and stare at a crocodile. Or, like, I just didn't understand. I was like, guys, you paid thousands and you're going to just stare at a crocodile, take pictures, look at the hippos. It just did not make sense to me.
Or look at birds.
Or look at birds. And I'm like, are there no better things to do with our money? But since then, experiencing these spaces and what the tall work pressure, but also the environment, lack of space, lack of mental health, I now appreciate our spaces in Botswana, and I don't think we need to change on that.
And Botswana is residence
Yeah.
to the biggest expanse of untouched land in the world. Yeah. And that's something that a lot of people don't talk about enough. And just think about it. It is resident to the biggest expanse of untouched land in the entire world. And that's the Delta. Yeah. So, I mean, it's something that I'm very proud of. So, I mean, oftentimes I think people talk about the diamonds. You know, and I don't see you and I wearing diamonds, right?
I have another story about diamonds.
But I mean, we have to think about diversifying our economy away from diamonds. And tourism is, you know, other than our beef, you know, Botswana is also a resident to some of the best beef in the world. I mean, you know, only competited to by maybe Brazilian beef, you know. But I mean, for me, what I find interesting about you is your ability to not only just be a patriot and a citizen, but your ability to actually have that sense of pride. I liked that statement, you know, there is nothing wrong with our nothingness. Because sometimes I see people that come here and in their narrative, it's almost like they look at gaps or they look at Botswana. And I think sometimes even when I read the newspaper, you know, I cringe because they're local newspapers, because I cringe and I'm like, okay, do these journalists understand that the way they're writing about Botswana, it's sometimes so negative because it's so insular, and one is not looking at Botswana within the context of the world. Do they recognize that somebody who's reading about this country, they might not want to come to Botswana? And then, so that in my mind is something that we ourselves sometimes carry and forget, we as Botswana, because we complain a lot about Botswana. And you know, specifically about the things that do not work, that we forget the things that work. But I think a construct of having that understanding is traveling, you know.
Not just traveling.
Exposure.
I don't know if I should say Matty or Mampona, because I call both Matty.
Everybody calls me Matty.
Matty. So I think it's a lack of foresight, because this is the only country you're going to die in. And this is the only country you're going to get old in. So it's in your best interest to ensure that the brand equity of the country is maintained and protected.
And grows.
Even when there are challenges. Because like you said, when you travel to most of these countries, the poverty that is displayed around Africa exists. You will see it. But it is not the first narrative that those countries tell and sell about their countries. And so maybe it's because of my experience also in my family, maybe my relationship with my grandmother. I think a lot about old age and how today, if your grandmother is not well, and go mo rekela dinepi, go mo tlhokomela. Over and above mo Botswana, over and above go amogela old age pension, you can go to a clinic and get access to these resources for free.
100%.
Currently, Botswana is still, from my view, and I acknowledge that it's my perspective, and it could be a different perspective for other people, but I acknowledge that our healthcare has got a lot of challenges. I acknowledge that our education system has got a lot of challenges, but we still have the privilege of access. Kore right now, we are grappling with, I would say, good problems, which is the problem of quality healthcare, quality education, not access. We've overcome the issue of
Access.
And so part of the brand equity in our country to be able to get investors here, not just that Mampona, it's also us Kharezwa. I don't know what your experience has been, especially when you're amongst other Africans, but even globally. One of the things that I always experience, Kila Botswana, hela motho utauti ke tswa Botswana, it's wow.
Yeah.
What an amazing country.
Yeah.
In fact, I was in Oxford sometime earlier this year. It was the University of Oxford Business Forum. I think it was the UK Africa Business Forum. The new chancellor of University of Oxford, it was a whole auditorium. People from different nationalities. I must have been the only Motswana in the room. Somebody from the audience asked the chancellor, you've been to so many countries in the world. What's the best country you've been to? What's the most memorable? Would you not believe? He says, Botswana. And I thought, what a coincidence.
Yeah.
I traveled all the way from Edinburgh to Oxford to get that. The second story, I was traveling, I think, about an hour from Edinburgh with some friends. We get into an Uber. And in the Uber, we have a conversation. It's like, oh, where are you from? My friend is from Kenya. And I say, I'm from Botswana. He's like, oh, Botswana. I went on holiday in Botswana a couple of years ago. And he says, very clean country, very well-kept country. This is an Uber driver. And I said to myself, maybe there's a reason why I'm getting all these positive sentiments. And beyond that, even when you get into meetings, people receive you well because you're from Botswana. As a business owner, that could be the difference between getting a deal or not. The country you're from. And whilst we have Botswana on such a good platform, we must protect that.
Yes.
Because one day, I think if you don't travel a lot and you don't engage with the external world a lot, you don't see the value of this.
Yes.
But also even, to go to the UK or Botswana, if you're going for less than 6 months, you don't need a visa. Do you know the young Africans on the continent who that is a make or break? The fact that you can access the UK for 6 months, go and explore. You can't trade, you can't do business, you can't be employed, but you can still go and engage. Opportunities travel through conversations. That is a major thing for us. So the moment we start putting narratives that put our country on the negative, things like 6 months access into the UK disappear.
Yeah.
And when you're a business owner or you're an investor, you now have to over-explain yourself too much to validate that you're credible, to validate that you're not somebody who, you're somebody who's trustworthy, you're somebody who with integrity. All these things we say about our country, we're able to maximize and make it our own stories when we get into boardrooms outside of Botswana. So these are things that must be protected because at some point, and I think we're at that point now as a country.
Absolutely.
Where we're looking to the world to come to Botswana to trade and do business and etc. We are doing this to maintain the access that we have in the country, the quality of life that we have in the country. So I often think about myself in old age. Even if I don't have kids, I'm not married, can Botswana's system, social welfare system, take care of me? Can I still travel to the clinic freely? Can I still, live? Can I get access freely? Not have to worry about crime and etc. And the narratives we tell today about our country will determine if we still have that Botswana.
Yes,
years later.
100%.
So,
You see, I've worked for government. I've worked for I work for the private sector now, but I've worked for government. I've worked for state-owned enterprises. There is a lot of good work in this. I mean, there's a lot of good in this country. And I'm not overselling Botswana, and and as much as, I think we spend, to your point, we spend too much time criticizing this country. I once read, and I think I did an interview with Plo Lumumba some years back. You recall when he came to Botswana, when we brought him here for the first time, Muluti and I. And I remember distinctly, it was the week where Ramasire had passed away. It was like that whole week where it was the memorial, Ramasire, the whole entire week. The funeral was on the Friday. And I remember reading this article by this Zambian journalist, and he was making the point that you are making, that people like Bo Ramasire, they built this country. He built this country so much so that when he passed away in a hospital in Gaborone, Botswana, not in Paris.
He didn't travel overseas.
He didn't travel overseas to go get medical help. He got medical help here. And even if he got medical help outside, he must have at some point come back home because he passed away in this country. So to your point, we have to build this country so that we're able to, if we choose to, die in this country. And more importantly, going back to my favorite quote that everybody knows, I love this quote. You know what it is, right? I mean, you must plant the trees in your lifetime under whose shade you might never live, or sit under.
But I also think it's a projection of a deeper issue at an individual level. What we say about our country, we're also projecting what we think about ourselves, our families, and our communities. Creative confidence is a big thing. And I say creative confidence because it's not just... Creative confidence is the ability to have an idea and bring it to life, to execute, to get things done, to build. And that's something that I think we don't have a lot of in Botswana. That's why you'd have a huge entrepreneurial intent, but few people who convert that intent to an actual action and business.
Yeah, 100%.
That's why you'll have a huge planning capability in the country, but a poor execution capability.
Yeah.
So I think the smaller nuances in our country is also the issue of creative confidence. And
I agree with you. And that's an interesting perspective, by the way. You just taught me something. But I also think, Yandi, do we have the right people sitting in the right chairs? Because a huge part of execution, and there's a reason why I'm saying this, that people, you want, your strategy person to be a conceptual thinker, broad-based, dreamer, and then in an organization, whatever organization it is, whether a formal organization or a non-formal organization, like a family is an organization, there has to be a doer, and I think a lot of the times, sometimes, and I'm saying this from the perspective of maybe HR, so there's a bias. Yeah. But whenever it is, I look at who we place in which seats. I'm always like, but that person, I think we objectively don't look at what people's capabilities are and then put them in environments where they can thrive, and we downplay their development areas, and we upmarket, and we upplay what their capabilities are in the positive. I think that's a part of it. But the creative confidence part is something that you just taught me. Go ahead.
So many thoughts to share. But I mean, to go to your point, I don't think that there's good or bad talent. I think there's good or bad support around the talent.
100%. 100%. You are brilliant. And on that point, as we say that, and as you say, it's about looking at what works with a person and where a person. Let's go back into education. You mentioned it much earlier, dovetailing back to what you said earlier, when you're talking about like how people just look at academics. I also don't believe like schools where I work right now, education falls under my portfolio. Okay. And I say all the time, you can't have a target of 100% pass rate. Not every single child is going to be academically inclined. Like kids that are gifted in different ways. Speak more on that.
So this is a topic very close to my heart, and I also speak about my academic experience. I believe we need three things. One is called platform of practice. No, platform for play. Kids must be free to play whilst they're in school, primary school, because the only way you identify what you're strong at, what you like, what you're interested in, what you're curious in naturally, is if you have an environment to play. That could be sport, that could be music, etc. 2, platform for practice. As young people, when we get to teenage stage, we need to start practicing something that we might be excellent in locally and globally. And I say this, I mean, of course, the researchers academically would have to go deeper into it, but I strongly feel there's something powerful about the number 15. I was in London recently, and Litsile Tebogo and Coach Dose were there at the DBS offices, Babuaka, Litsile's journey. And Coach Dose speaks about how I think his relationship started maturing at 16, but he discovered Litsile at 15. But at 15, Litsile was already practicing, whether it was him playing football before he pivoted to sports. Similar for me, actually, I started in industry at the age of 15, but I was a rapper. If I want to make it nice, I'll say I was a rhythmic and poetry artist. But the confidence I got from rapping, the writing skills I got from rapping, even the social capital from rapping, because it's my social capital from the rapping circles that later opened doors for me in the radio industry, is what I use today as a corporate facilitator. Because when you're a rapper, you have to pull crowds. You have to know how to have a hit song. You have to know how to have a punchline. When you're a moderator, you have to have a hook. What's hooking your audience in the first 30 seconds? And you have to have the capacity to deal with an audience live and direct, different types of audiences. That's the same skill I took into broadcasting as a broadcaster. Learning how to project my voice so that people, because there's a skill to it. Why people, the people you listen to, you don't know why you're listening to them, and sometimes you don't even hear what they're saying, but you just keep paying attention because their voice sounds good and they sound like they know what they're talking about, and you keep listening. I got that from the music industry, and I started at 15. We then need platforms for practice. Keep practicing, Then we need platforms for performance. Right now we have it in the form of, like, in the sports field. You'll have the athletes going to the Olympics. I think about this a lot, how we are glorifying Litsile Tebogo and the 400-meter relay team because they got to the Olympics and we got to see them performing on a global stage. But in the creative sector, for example, when you look at William Last KRM, that is him on global performance. His creativity, the quality of his work. But as a creative, it's unfortunate. You don't have something like the Olympics where you'll say William Last RM is going to perform on a global stage and then let's put endorsement deals behind him. No, what we should be doing is saying, put William Last KRM into a lab and say, regulators, how do we unlock access to this young man to get £1 billion or dollar endorsements? Do you know that when you go to the UK, for example, there are different types of visas. There's the graduate visa, there's a skilled worker visa, then there's what you call global talent visa. That's the visa that when you get to the UK, you don't need to be working like immediately. You don't need to be having a running business to be in the UK and to start to look for those opportunities. You have a global talent visa. It means you're a rare talent. One of the sectors that qualify for global talent visa is the arts and entertainment. So why isn't somebody getting in we'd rather be getting a William Last into the room and saying, how do we package this young man and facilitating him to get a global talent visa? And how do we pump finances behind him it could be anything. It could be him being an ambassador in terms of, the examples on Redefining Botswana earlier on around, I think you're speaking about our vastness. It's the only land, I forget the quote that you used.
I was saying that Botswana is resident to the largest expanse of untouched land in the world.
Who better to communicate than William Last in a way that different audiences globally? I think he's got more than 5 million followers, that guy. Who will get it and convert that to a ticket to Botswana to go and experience this thing. So we need to, those are some of the things that we need to look in when we say platform for performance and facilitate even the talent in the country that doesn't necessarily have global platforms to go and compete in. So I think the education system, that's what it needs. And in instances where it isn't there, we have to look to communities, whether it's through the VDCs, we have to look through to families to say, as a parent as well, facilitate your child to play. And I've given the different examples. Facilitate your child. Your child must have something they practice. Even if they might change their mind, like I changed my mind about music. There are transferable skills you can convert. But what is that one thing from 15 going up or before 15 that your child is consistently practicing? Because you're giving them a shot at being rare talent or global excellence. And then the third one, which is performance, give them platforms to actually go and showcase and compete and all of that. So that's what I think about education.
I feel like you just put me through, what is it? I don't want to say an MBA, but something. Yeah, but I mean, because it is valuable, and people think of MBAs only within the context of commerce, but what you're talking about is early childhood development. Well, platform to play, platform to practice, platform to perform. Hey, but it's a mukote. Yeah, I will not be forgetting. I mean, this whole entire week, that's all everybody's gonna hear. You know how I am. Like, once I learn a new word, I hang on to it for dear life, and I use it for an entire month until I get bored of it, and then I find a new one. And now you just told me something. Yeah. So, I mean, you, Yandile, in terms of your thought process, what do you hope for Botswana right now? Let's get into that. What is your feeling about Botswana? Yeah. I maintain that I'm still very hopeful. Yeah. You know, I'm still very hopeful.
I think that we're in a season where, I mean, my experience in the UK and in Botswana, I mean, I got into leadership, I think, at the age of 25 when I got into the Botswana National Youth Council. I'm currently, again, in another leadership role in the country. I can't speak about that publicly for now. But having experienced both sides of the world and
congratulations on that, by the way. And I know we can't speak about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. The assignment is to build quality institutions in Botswana. And when I say quality institutions, my father once told me a story about his experience with GoUB, and after he finished GoUB, I think Naira, that BSE program where after 2 years or something like that, you then go overseas. And he says to me, his professor in the UK, he was doing mining engineering. He's like, he gave them one of the hardest questions. My father was able to crack it. And he's like, Yandi, kana that thing neridirago BUB, BSE. And ever since my father said, and the professor was fascinated. He's like, wow, like you're a genius, you know? And he's like, but these are the things that we did. Go you be. And that experience said to me, could we be sleeping on a good academic institution in Botswana, teaching one of the most complex concepts, teaching brilliant talent, instead of looking at it as an institution that is less than from a global perspective? Let's look at how do we make University of Botswana a globally accessible institution from where it is, and from where it is, not looking at it. I think one of the challenges that I had to break out free from, but I also think it exists in Botswana, is looking at it, things as though we have to start from ground zero or things are all bad versus we are at 50%, cool, how do we get the next 50% or how do we scale and grow?
How do we scale and grow?
How do we scale and grow? Yeah. So I think there's a huge opportunity for Botswana to attract elite African talent. Botswana can be an alternative to young Africans going to the US and having to fall victim to immigration and go USA. Will it change overnight? Or you don't know your fate. Even in the UK, you can wake up and the requirements for you accessing a visa have changed. But we could be a safe haven for top global African talent
100%.
That comes to Botswana. That's 100%. What I see. And we have to build the institutions. And I say this because we cannot all afford to go global and go outside. So that's the future I see for Botswana. And we have to work on our culture to embrace different nationalities and differences and not look at and not be closed-minded. Re le Batswana.
And to
so-
that point, when education was not as heavily localized across the different elements of education, by the way, when I went to GSS, physics was from a Filipino, chemistry was from a lady from Kenya. I remember English was somebody English, Setswana by a Motswana, biology by a Motswana. Like when education was truly universal and very diverse in terms of its delivery, education in Botswana was better. I argue that because I went through the experience. The University of Botswana, now that you speak about the University of Botswana, I was just on the outgoing council. The University of Botswana has a lot of potential. And the language that you're speaking is so timely right now because more and more of us will not be able to afford to have our children go to school abroad. And who says abroad should be a standard of excellence? But I am working on a project that I also can speak on as yet with MIT that I'm very, very excited about around the incubation of entrepreneurship in this country. But one thing that I want you to touch more on is within that space, to what extent do you see opportunities within early childhood development? I guess I'm
not sure I have an answer for that. What was my childhood experience? I think it's food for thought.
Yeah. Trevor Noah said something very interesting. I was watching one of his podcasts yesterday, and he was like, we've been sold a lie. The lie of dispelling or stripping ourselves of our communities. So you're born, you're in a family, you have a mother, you have a father. At some point, you then decide to leave. You're told, go live by yourself. You live by yourself. And at some point now, your kids are being raised by somebody. We've outsourced all these humane services to community. And we've outsourced the aspects of our lives that speak to ourselves. And I guess the greatest example that I've seen to just jostle you a bit is the Indian communities. That's why they live in these huge houses, but you'll find like 5 families, 6 families. It's very, very communal. Somewhere along the line, we started going away from the need for that level of connectedness. And this is also true amongst us as Africans, where somewhere along the line, we started seeing, your TK. I have instances where people refer to TK as this what's Zimbabwean, and it's always very jarring to me and very, very surprising, TK, and sometimes I forget that type of thinking, that level of xenophobia, but I think we're also quite negating of communities that can assist us to be able to survive, because I think the current state of affairs forces us to come closer to each other. This is why I hate this term, black tax. I say to people, what do you mean black tax? You know what I mean? Don't call my responsibilities black tax. This is why I don't understand people that, I've always told you the story of some people that we know that live in certain places and they've got 10 toilets and you're like, oh, really? And they've got 2 kids. You're like, are you really going to use all these toilets in one lifetime? So it's food for thought that we should start to think of how to take better care of each other. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I think that's an interesting view, and somehow I think about my relationship with my grandmother and my relationship with my 2 siblings. 2 siblings are Gen Zs. I think that, of course, this is a small contribution. It's not the be it and end all, but I think to young people and children, the best sort of guidance we can give is also to be the best adults and individuals. I say this because there's a 10-year gap between myself and my other sibling, and our sibling journey has been quite challenging. When you want to say, don't do that, and it's like, I'm too old to understand, and I'm trying to advise, no, that's not the right way to do things. This is not how you should be approaching school. And it's like, no, you know how Gen Zs are. It got to a point in my life where I realized this kid is not going to listen to anything I say, but is watching what I do. And And so whatever I'm saying about career, whatever I'm saying about personal lifestyle, I just need to live it and try my best to project it. And he will make a decision and choice, and he will arrive at that choice, whether today or tomorrow in the future. So I think the call today, Gen Zs and going, I forgot what the next one is called. They are watching us. And there's no amount of, gone are the days, I think in your time, a parent can say, in fact, I came across something, a debate online, and there was an entire debate with and it's like, in this day and age of mental health, why aren't you asking your parents how they're doing? And then there was another story, post on Facebook, there's a rule in my house. Before you ask me for anything or report something, ask me how I'm doing first. So parenting is also changing.
Yeah.
So I think the best contribution I'd make to that is, I think that the best way to guide and parent, and I say this, but understanding that I've also filled in gaps for other people, whether it's with my family or with my friends, is that even as a community, be the best example you can possibly be, and children will make decisions based on the examples. I used to tell my younger sibling, I said, don't listen to what I say, but watch your mother, watch your father, watch your uncle, watch me. Ask yourself how we all arrived where we are in our lives, and ask yourself, what decisions did we make to get there? For those that are in good positions and those that are in bad positions, make a decision. I want to arrive at that bad situation, so I'm gonna make these decisions today. Because children, until they reach 21, their mind is unable to reason with consequences. So you do something, but you're not thinking about consequences. So the best way to do it is to project and to say, look at this community, decide, I want to arrive there, and ask yourself, what choices and decisions and actions were they making at your age? So yeah, I hope that's a small contribution.
Wow.
I don't know if I've answered you.
Yes. Well, you see, the whole point is to have a conversation.
Yeah. And the last one with my grandmother, I found that in my 20s, early 20s, whilst you're fighting unemployment, finding your career path, your footing, finances, and all of that, one of the best gifts that my grandmother has given me is to remind me of who I am. Especially in my early 20s, where you're doubting your capabilities, what are you able to do? And there's this story that they always tell me. My mother tells it. One morning she went to work. When she came back, I was talking. I had said my first word. I had taken my first step. And I had my first tooth, all in one day. And just hearing that story in a time where maybe I'm doubting my capabilities, I suddenly remembered that my God-given natural capabilities, I can bloom multidimensionally. I don't have to walk today first and then wait, say my first word, and then wait. It can all happen at once, and I have that natural innate abilities. Just that story boosts my confidence at a time where, I've had multiple careers, whether it's in broadcasting, corporate facilitation. I've worked full-time as well. In my other work.
You're a multi-hyphenate.
I haven't even shared what I've done in school and all of that. But that story made me realize, because we have this thing, you can't do many things. You can't be a jack of all trades. Yet when you go globally, people are doing many things and excelling 100%. At many things.
100%.
So just that story at a time where maybe I was doubting myself would give me strength. So I find that being in communal spaces, even with older generations in our family, they have a thing of reminding us of who we are in times when we forget it, really. So yeah.
Famous last words. What do you want to, what is the last gem of, I've enjoyed this. I could talk to you forever. And that's a danger, though.
I hope everyone else will enjoy it.
No, they will. Certainly they will. You see, the thing is, I'm going to have you back. Because with podcasting, I'm going to have you back, definitely. With podcasting, you don't want to go past an hour. But famous last words. Because there's a lot to explore about you. We haven't even gotten into who Yandile is
what she
on
does.
the and what she.
I think that ultimately, if I was to speak to young people in Botswana, nobody can prepare you for an opportunity or push you into an opportunity. I think we need to be independent in building ourselves. And I often use Litile Tebogo and Lesego Chombo as an example to say before the young lady became a minister, she had exercised self-leadership in the sense that she went on and excelled academically as a lawyer. She went and excelled in the beauty pageantry. It is that act of self-leadership and being able to build capabilities, performing on a global scale, and demonstrating and validating that she has aspects of self-leadership, was she then entrusted with the opportunity to lead others. And I want to say, no matter how many policies are put in place or the challenges that we have, nothing can ever fill in that gap that you need to fill in yourself. And I think lastly, I'll say we've got many issues and young people have got many challenges. But I often say this, if today we had a debate about, because we also have those debates, and I think you asked me the same question, Elian Tauri, the other people who shouldn't be in positions that they're in. And I often say, okay, as we debate on whether or not Matty should be in a position, if tomorrow we took her out of that position, would you be the next in line? Would you be the good substitute? And if the answer is no, you have not earned your right
To say that.
to criticize in that manner.
100%. Like a person who criticizes government but doesn't vote.
Yeah. So we criticize whilst doing something. Criticize whilst building an alternative. Validate with actions. Criticize with evidence. So I think to young people, because I think that's the urgent crisis for me that I see, is that time moves very fast. And before you know it, you've been idle. You've been idle criticizing. You've been idle blame gaming. And you haven't done much.
Wasting time on Facebook.
So I think that would be my, and I hope it's not too harsh, but you know, that's
No, I don't think it's harsh. I don't listen. I don't think it's harsh. I think it needs to be said. I think you're talking to accountability. You know, I had Tapelo Lipe on this platform, you know, the other day, and he was talking about, you know, holding ourselves to account and holding others to account, and more especially holding yourself to account even before you can hold
Others
the next person to
accountable.
account. Yeah, and it's a form of discipline as well, which is why, if you recall, the thing about TGM, that was the whole thing. It was about discipline. Will you show up on Sunday for 7 hours? Will you show up on Wednesday for 4 hours after work? And the people that showed up every single time, look at where they are. Look at where you are. And where you're going. So it remains for me to thank you. It remains for me to thank you so much for having come here.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I can't wait to have you back. And
You
I
managed to get me here because I don't really, I interview people, but I don't get interviewed.
Yes. Charm offensive. Plus, I mean, I'm the one person who can make you laugh all day. But most of the jokes would be too inappropriate for a podcast. But it remains for me to thank you once again. Thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. My name is Matlogonolo Letsopampwanang. See you the next time on the next episode. Thank you very much.